She's very, very generous with her time. So, Christina, do definitely say thank you for doing this. And
Sure.
if you don't mind, just leading off with kind of a story of how did you end up with the Seattle Opera? What's the backstory?
I'll give you a bit of a backstory, and also just to say it up front, I love, since I've been here only for a year, I'm always happy to meet more people. So it was really a pleasure to connect with you, and I hope we can also meet in person at some point. I actually do meet in person, even now, at distance with a mask. No, I've been in this business for 33 years. And I'll do it quickly. I'm from Hamburg, Germany. I had a Spanish grandmother. I grew up bilingual, which is a huge advantage in a business that is international. And I went Hamburg, Milan, Barcelona, in Milan, artist management, Barcelona, the Opera House, Venice, briefly, San Francisco Opera. I was 7 years there, 11 years afterwards at Washington National Opera, 2.5 years in Oman at the Royal Opera House Muscat, which was too short and best time of my life. And then I went from there back to Barcelona for 5 years in a different position though. It was 20 years later. And then from Barcelona here. Barcelona, Spain is, Seattle is a city I always enjoyed and loved. I met Spade Jenkins in 1994. I'm only the 4th general director of this opera company, and Spade was the 2nd one. He was here for like nearly 30 years. And I met him in 94 and always had a very collegial and pleasant dialogue with him, despite the age difference. I mean, he's about 3 decades or more my senior, but he's always been a great colleague and very respectful colleague. I came to Seattle several times while I lived in San Francisco. And when I knew the position here became free, I thought I'd give it a try because it's just a place that I really enjoy and liked. And I have dual citizenship. I have a German and an American passport. So it's easy for me, and it was a tempting idea to come to Seattle. And so I went through the motions, and they ultimately were dared to offer me the job, and I took it. I moved about a year ago. My last day in Barcelona was July 30th, 2019. My first day in Seattle was August 5, 2019. And in between was a flight and a missed flight. And so it was basically 2.5 days of travel, closing on the house, and then the following day come and have my first day at the office.
Wow.
When you do it a few times, it becomes easier. But I have to say, when I came in July, I gave my partner and myself 5 days to buy a house. We found a house, and then the day before starting the job, we closed on the house.
Oh, wow.
It then still took a month and a half before our container arrived. So I was, sleeping on the floor and, the joys of moving. But here I am, and I'm very happy. We live in West Seattle, and it's very pleasant.
So of those places that you've been before, do any of those kind of remind you of Seattle, or are they totally unique?
Well, where I'm from, Hamburg, does remind me of Seattle. Hamburg it has one of the biggest harbors in Europe. It's on a river, on the Elbe, which at that point is very wide. It has several lakes in the city. It's rainy also in the fall and winter, so I don't care. People say, it rains in Seattle. I go, I don't care. And then I actually have been sending many photos of sunny Seattle in the last weeks and said, it doesn't rain, look at this. And so it reminds me of Hamburg. Also the air, the sea air, and the salt in the air, and it's very green. Hamburg is too. It's just Seattle and the region is just a size bigger. It's just a dimension larger than Hamburg. But it's comparable, and so I'm enjoying it.
One of the
despite COVID.
Well, speaking of, I was going to say, we talked previously a couple weeks ago, and this pandemic has been extremely hard on the arts in particular.
It's terrible.
Um,
It's really terrible because we cannot do anything. It took me 2 months fighting with the Department of Culture of the city to get them to say, oh, okay, you can do neighborhood serenades, which means a van, an electric keyboard, drag it out of the van, a pianist with a mask, and a singer singing out on the parking lot or in the entrance area, and with the people listening from inside the building, opening the windows. And it took me forever to get them to agree. I mean, I sometimes really feel there's an intention to kill the arts, which I think is dangerous because it kills also the downtown area. It kills the activity and the liveliness of a city and creativity also. And a city is attractive not just because of restaurants and jobs, but also because you have music and jazz clubs and dance and ballet and opera and theater. There's a lot that makes a city attractive. And right now, I think Seattle it has problems also. It's perceived as dangerous. I often get letters in recent weeks from our donors saying, oh, we don't know if we're going to come back because Seattle is dangerous. I'm like, well, I don't agree. But it's certainly what we've heard in the last weeks of Seattle is for many is disconcerting. And I think that the city needs to also include the arts in some recovery because we enliven the city. But we'll see, we'll get there. Meanwhile, we'll start with the community serenades, and then as they allow more, we'll do more. Right now we stream, we produce fresh content on the stage of the Opera House, recording, and then we edit it, and then we stream it, but it's new content that we've created. Last week, we had singers from out of town who flew in, and we recorded with them on the stage. It was really exciting. It was beautiful to hear in the auditorium a voice again and music again. And plus, it was great because they had put the table for me in the front row, so I had a private concert basically, which was quite a privilege.
Nice. Christina, are those recordings on the opera website?
Not yet. We had over the summer several recitals, 14 recitals, Songs of Summer on our website, and they were available to anybody. We had to cancel our 2 productions for the fall. I mean, Cavalleria and Pagliacci, there were the operas in August, and Elixir of Love in October. And what we record them and we'll make them accessible to subscribers. I had to limit the access because otherwise the unions will ask for payment, and rightly so. You know, it's you can't just monetize a product and think that nobody wants a share on it because it's them performing and singing. So because the subscribers would have seen that content anyway because they paid for it already for the whole season, we will make this accessible to subscribers, plus a recital of 2 sopranos who will do also a recital with piano. But then we also have in the fall several recitals that are free and accessible to everybody. And we announced this last week, and we will keep announcing that via emails and informations. But we needed to make something accessible just for the subscribers. Because we need to provide something for what the subscribers paid. And I cannot do more. It's not that I don't want to, I can't. I mean, the state doesn't allow me to do more.
Yeah.
So we'll do what we can, and when they let us do a little bit more, we'll do a little bit more.
We were talking previously about kind of the history of the arts and how they've funded themselves, how they've maintained through other hard times. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think that there's too much belief into everything has to generate money and shouldn't cost money. But, education costs money, the arts, research and science is an investment. It doesn't generate a direct financial benefit. And the arts, the music especially is in theater is a little similar. I mean, you invest in something that stimulates mind, senses, emotions, artistic skills. And it always has been in some form or fashion supported. The first recorded sponsor of the arts was Gaius Maecenas, an advisor to the Roman Emperor Augustus. Maecenas lived from 68 to 8 BC. And in Latin languages, in German, a Mäzen means a sponsor and a sponsor of the arts. Ein Mäzen, mecenazgo in Spanish, means a supporter of the arts. And that was coined by the last name of the first known supporter of the arts. That was, 2,000 years ago. And over the centuries and over the course of human civilization, the arts have always been supported by nobility, by kings, by rich merchants, and they look what came of it. I mean, it wasn't a direct, I produce a piece of art and somebody pays for it, and it enriched our lives. I mean, Michelangelo became what he was because of the Medici family. Beethoven was employed by the Archduke Rudolf in Germany, in Bonn. And many others. Shakespeare had a sponsor, which of course is not a sponsor, is really an employer, because the arts always got commission, sculptures, poems, libretto, paintings, music, compositions, opera. It was because some commissioned it, employed the artist to create art for the community and enrich the community, but also make the community more beautiful, a city. Or it was a display of wealth and power. I mean, look at the Medici. It wasn't just Michelangelo, but what the Medici created in Renaissance Italy, and you were from central Italy, from Tuscany to Rome and beyond, the beauty, the power, also the architecture, what would we do without that? I mean, we'll be very poor without that vision and investment by wealthy nobility or wealthy merchants that decided they want to show their might and their success by making it visible through the arts and through artists. And so over the centuries, it was always something that got paid for and supported in order to exist. That's not new. What is new is the balance of expenses is very different today. I mean, when you look opera, for example, we cover more or less 35% of our budget through ticket sales, because today, unlike in the 19th century, where composers could actually make money from the box office, or an impresario that created a production could make money, but at that time they paid maybe a famous singer a decent living wage, and the choristers and the musicians got peanuts and were poor and miserable. Today we expect all the people that work at the theater, not just in opera, but also in musical and straight theater, those people make living wages. And of course that increased the expense a lot. And I cannot increase the tickets by that much, because then I would have to charge $1,200 per ticket. And then it becomes elitist. I mean, it's often said, oh, theater and opera is elitist. It's not, I'm sorry. I mean, if you buy a ticket behind home plate for the Yankees, you actually pay $1,000 per game. So I don't buy into this elitist idea, because if something has value, there is a price to it. I mean, those are highly skilled professionals. Those are professionals that have trained for years to be what they are, to have the skill that they have. But also, as theater, we don't just have the actor, the singer, the musicians. Seattle Opera employs about 800 people over the course of a year, from singers, directors, designers, conductors, choristers, musicians, the wig and makeup personnel, dressers, drapers, stitchers, tailors, electricians, carpenters, programmers, because all the lighting in a show is all via obviously via a lighting board, and it gets all programmed. You have per show about 300 lighting cues, and you have anywhere between 300 and 800 lighting instruments hanging around the stage. It's not your living room where a lamp is going to be enough. It's a huge stage to have all those effects. So it's a highly qualified and specialized personnel that puts the show on. But that's also the magic of it. I mean, in a way, it's not, you don't need to know everything around it, because sometimes it can take the magic away. But it takes a lot of people to make it look easy and smooth and seamless to you. Very often, for example, productions have costume changes. I mean, the dresser, it sounds so, oh, they need a dresser to put their shirt on. No, the dresser really often, especially in period costumes, you have a corsage, you have complicated shoes, you have a big jacket, a vest, a shirt. I mean, they need help to put this on. And then also you often have shows where you have quick changes, where 30 choristers go off stage and have 90 seconds to change from one costume to the other. And that's it's like a Swiss watch. It's incredibly well rehearsed and prepared in order for this to go easily. Wigs, you can see if a wig is made of plastic or if it's made of real hair. Wigs take thousands of hairs, one by one, made into a wig. This is a craft, this is handiwork. This is not something you can make with a machine. I mean, you can, but it doesn't look the same, and you cannot treat the hair the same. Makeup typically is done by a makeup artist also, because you have to put makeup on an artist, and not everybody is capable. Especially you gentlemen, it's not exactly you're in the habit to make great makeup and put it in your face. So you're going to need somebody to do it for you. And then you have stage managers, you have the people, you have the rigging guys that pull the bars up or down where we hang either a curtain or a curtain that is painted, or the main curtain. I mean, it works with counterweights, but still, somebody has to pull it. And it's much better by hand than with a machine, because you cannot time it. If the music or if the singer sings a line and that evening he's maybe out of breath, and so the finale, the music, it goes a little faster, well, then the curtain has to come down a little faster. The machine doesn't hear that. The technician that is on the curtain does hear it and will actually then put the curtain down a little faster so that the touching the floor matches with the last note. And that makes the effect also, when you have, when the music, it all is very well tuned. The stage manager is the person who commands the stage. Nothing happens on stage unless the stage manager says go. If it's a light cue, if it's a rail cue, that something from the grid flies in or up, lighting cues, the maestro going into the pit, he doesn't move a foot until the the stage manager says, "Maestro, go," and only then does the maestro go into the pit. And he only gives the downbeat when the light at his music stand gives green, because it has to be timed with the stage being ready for the show to start. And sometimes it's live theater. Sometimes we have little disasters or reasons where you go, "Oh, look, wait a moment." It's all incredibly well timed. But that's the fascinating part of it. I often get asked, "Oh, why do they have to rehearse?" And I kind of have to swallow so I don't kind of strangle in anger. Because, I mean, anybody who has watched sports in any form or fashion knows that teams train. I mean, show me a football team that comes to the field the day before the first game, quarterback and the players get the playbook handed and said, "Here, read this, and then tomorrow we go." That's not how it works. They have spring training for weeks. They have, before they even start the preseason games, that is their rehearsal time. And theater, if it's opera, if it's theater, if it's a symphony orchestra, it's the same. You've got to rehearse in order to make sure that everything clicks. I mean, on any given evening, when you have a normal, not the semi-staged and small things that we're doing right now, but a regular performance has about, on average, 200 people working the performance. Somewhere from 200 to 450, actually. I mean, there's a lot of room. And that coordination of everything and everybody doing the exactly right thing at the right time, that takes rehearsal time. And that's why it looks easy to you, as it should be. And I find this every time fascinating. I've been going to the opera since I was 16. I've been professionally in this since I was 22. And it doesn't get old, because it's every evening is different. Every show, even the same opera over and over and over again, every performance is different. And then also it's in, like in golf, you know, you play golf and you're frustrated and and then you have this one great shot and you go, "Oh, that's why I'm doing this. Isn't it fabulous?" And in opera, you have many excellent performances, but once in a while, there's this one performance where everything clicks. And that's where we especially that see a lot of performance go, "This is why I'm doing this." Because just everything is electrifying and everything was right. And every singer was just at his or her best and the orchestra was just energized. And that's why you're doing this. And you keep doing it because of those special moments. In sport, the same. I mean, there are those special games, and then there are games that are just lame. And somebody wins, but it's like, eh. And I think that the arts are really important. And sometimes we don't think, you can say, "Oh yeah, she says it's important because she works in it." Yeah, of course I say this, otherwise I wouldn't be working in it. But I mean, just right now, where we don't have performing arts, but go further. Think for a moment, really, our community without the arts. It's not just no music, no theater. It means no libraries, no books, no movies, because nobody writes scripts, nobody's acting, nobody's making the music for the movies, nobody designs the costumes, nobody designs the scenery, nobody is directing, nobody is producing and putting the show together. We would all live in houses that look square and gray. We would all wear the same clothes, drive the same looking cars, because this is all an artistic job. I mean, graphic design, industrial design, costume design, our clothes, somebody designed that. If we didn't need that, we could do them ourselves, but then we would all wear a potato sack over our head, because I really can't design a good or sew a good clothing. We are constantly surrounded by things that are artistic and creative. And I think we need to remember this. We might not all like opera, which is fine. I really don't mind that. I mean, I love jazz. I like some rock. I like pop. It's not just opera, but the skill to produce music, to sing, to play an instrument, to function in concert. I mean, to sing together requires to listen to each other, which is, by the way, a skill that we are all forgetting. We are not able of listening to each other anymore. I mean, not the politicians, and very often also not in a professional team. We just talk. We want to talk and we want to be heard. But to really make something work in a chorus, in an orchestra, in a company, in a research project, in a sports team, requires listening to each other. And everybody has a role. And I think this is something that we need to learn, frankly, early on. I mean, I played team sports since I was 7, and I've been singing in the chorus since I was 11. And it really teaches you a respect for others that is useful in life, no matter if you're singing later or if you, whatever you do. So I think that the arts have a place in our society and in our cities, which I think would be otherwise awfully boring. And I find any city right now pretty boring because there's nothing happening. I mean, it's the nightmare I talked about when I did the speech at the Rotary Club, where I said, you know, imagine Seattle without this, and the other thing. Well, guess what? This is exactly what we have now, thanks to COVID.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. That is not, I mean, it'll pass. It'll be hard, but it'll pass. But I think that we need to make very sure to energize the arts and to go again when it's possible to go. Same as we will have to return to go to sports events. I don't want Seattle without the arts. I don't want Seattle without sports. I mean, I can go kayaking because, you know, I'm away from other people, but I don't need an audience for that. But a good football game, a soccer game. And the soccer games in Europe now, they're also playing the applause. I saw the finals of the Champions League, and they played applause. They had somebody who beautifully watched and followed the game and put applause in according to the situation, which is so much more satisfying than seeing a game in total silence.
Right.
Which is the same with music. I mean, the other day when we recorded Cavalleria, and the tenor really sang damn well, and it's silence. Plus it's needed because of the recording, you know, there has to be, because of the sound that travels, and there's a reverb, so there has to be silence for a moment. But oh my God, to hear those pieces and then after a few seconds, cut! All right. But I love what I do. I also think that, look, if theater has been around for thousands of years, there's a reason for it. I think there's a human desire to tell stories. If it's to word or to dance or to the voice. I mean, also in opera, we don't amplify. It's the natural voice that sings and fills McCaw Hall. And the instruments aren't amplified, except for effects, if we need like an echo effect or we need something. But the voices they're just trained voices and sing without amplification. And it works. And there's a thrill about it. You know, it's the human voice. And you go, wow.
How do they train themselves to be able to do that, to fill that type of hall?
They basically go back to the technique of a baby. You know, when babies scream out of the top of their lungs for a long time, and you go, why on earth is this kid not running out of steam? The voice, the projected voice functions based on the we have the diaphragm around where the belly is, and it's a muscle. And the diaphragm, when you breathe in, holds an air column. You breathe in, diaphragm holds that air, and it's an air column that then spins in your cavities here and here and in the upper part of the chest. And those are your sound cavities. And the air spins there, the sound spins there and projects out and takes that sound. See, that's
Right,
also well
thank you.
projected. That is well projected.
Yeah.
And then of course with your face, with the tongue, you create then the pitch also, obviously. But the basic technique is supporting an air column that you then control, you know, in intensity. You give more, you give less, and if you want to be louder or piano, you measure it with your body and create the sound. And if you have the chance, I don't have kids, and I just have the kids of the neighborhood, and I'm impressed by the volume that some of those kids can produce at high pitch. But if you ever are somewhere where they have little kids and really observe them when they shout out of the top of their lungs, I mean, small ones, 1 year, 2-year-olds, and they don't stop and they don't lose their voice. It's because they really sing with this power from the diaphragm and just put the sound right where it belongs, and doesn't come from here. It's here, and it's not tiring. And that's what singers actually also do. It's a technique that obviously, as you maneuver various pieces, it's difficult sometimes because you go from high pitch to low pitch, or you do coloratura where the voice moves fast or has to be, or it's very powerful. It takes years to really train and get used to all the styles and be able to maneuver your voice. But it's not amplified. And
So
it
how
fills
are the-
out.
Go
Sorry,
ahead, David.
David.
Go ahead, David.
I was about to ask, how are the acoustics in the Seattle venue?
McCaw Hall has an excellent acoustic. It really is. It has 2,900 seats, but it feels smaller. It feels smaller for the audience, and it feels smaller for the singers also. And it's not because I say it. I mean, the singers themselves say that it sounds really, when they sing into the hall, they feel that the sound returns, and they don't feel like they're singing into a huge barn. It really feels like the sound remains contained. And it's a really good. Benaroya Hall.
Sorry, I was going to ask, does an opera singer have to change the way they sing if they're doing, say, an outdoor performance?
Outdoors, they use microphone. Because
they use microphone outdoors. It would get lost.
Outdoors,
yeah.
Because the sound just disperses too much. There's much more humidity outdoors, which also sucks the sound. And usually outdoors, you use a microphone.
Christina, I have a couple questions along these same lines. First one is, do the opera singers get energy back from the audience? I mean, it seems to me they're looking at a big black void. And can they really get energy back from the audience while they're performing?
Totally. They can sense if the audience is dead in just a few minutes. I mean, there are performances where the singers, you know, they sing their hearts out, and sometimes they come off the stage and say, "Is anybody out there today, or what?" And then there are other performances where they can feel that the audience is at the edge of their seat. There is definitely an energy that goes from the stage into the audience and back. And that's the way it should be. Because it's a give and take.
The second question, kind of along those same lines, is, and maybe you can't answer this, but what are they thinking when they're singing? Because supposing they're singing an Italian opera and it's flowery, and are they visualizing that? Or, I mean, how do they visualize their thinking to put that kind of a performance on?
They go a little bit on autopilot in the sense that they've studied the roles, the music, the words, the notes for weeks or months on end. They have to memorize it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really internalized. And when they go out, they have to focus. I mean, they cannot think about the shopping list while they do this. I mean, they have to be very much on autopilot in order to do that. But they really focus on the notes that they've studied. And of course, they think also about the words. I mean, it's different when you call for revenge, or if you sing a love song. I mean, the music also suggests what you want to express. And as you study the role, you think also how you want to express something. And that's where your own personality goes into the interpretation. I mean, there are singers that, sorry, I'm going to say it, are intellectually or emotionally not the smartest. And you can tell because it not necessarily conveys really what the piece has to say. Then there are those who have great instincts and they're fabulous, even if afterwards you really cannot have an intelligent conversation about the piece that they just sung. And then you have those who have everything and they're sensitive artists, intelligent historians even or musicologists, and who really go deep into the pieces. And those are the ones who you will also see sing recitals. I mean, lieder, songs, with piano and just the voice, because when you're just with the piano, you're naked as a singer. You cannot hide between makeup or a costume. It's you. You are telling the audience how you understand that text. And that's the highest level of conveying how you understand a piece. And it's, look, I only sang in the chorus, and still today, the things that I memorized 40 years ago, I still remember, and big choral pieces that I sang in the years. I can tell that I didn't think too much other than about the notes that I had memorized, the text that I have to articulate and enunciate, follow the conductor, follow your music. There's a lot that you have to think about when you sing. The good thing is a lot is memorized, and once it's memorized, you remember it. I sang the Mozart Requiem 38 years ago, and it's still there. I mean, sometimes when it is on the radio, I kind of sing along to the detriment of my partner who thinks I'm crazy. But once you really studied a role well, you can do it again. That's when when singers have an emergency jump in, they call it, if somebody cancels and then they're being called to sing, let's say Carmen, and they haven't sung the tenor role in Carmen in about 5 years. But if they really studied it well, it doesn't matter, you know, they take a pianist half an hour and go, no, and it comes back. But at the same token also, when you have to study a new role very quickly, let's say somebody cancels a production, they say, can you learn that role in 2 weeks? And the singer says, yes, I can do that, no problem. But when they learn it that fast, it doesn't stay. They also forget it faster. Really interesting how you memorize music and how you memorize text. I can kind of badly sing the Mozart Requiem to you and sing the text. If you tell me to recite the text, it's impossible. And a lot of singers have that too, where text and the notes go together. Even if they read the text beforehand, just to understand what they're saying. You know, some speak Italian, some speak Russian, and they understand the words. But sometimes they have to just get the translation of what they're singing and in order to understand what their role is about. What is every word really about? It's very important in order to convey it to the audience. And it's work. It's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Languages are part of the singer's job.
When they're preparing for a new piece, a company is about to put on a new one. Is there a process where there's almost a collective time of telling the story? Are the artists expected just to know the backstory themselves, or is
The
someone?
artists are expected to show up with the music and the text prepared. When you do, let's say, not a brand new piece. I mean, if it's a world premiere, an opera that's never been done, it takes about 3 years of preparation, or 2.5. If you do a new production, let's say Carmen, and you do a new production, so you hire a stage director, a set designer, a costume designer, a lighting designer to create the concept and the look of the performance. And then you get them presented the concept and how it's going to look, and you try to see how much is it going to cost to build it, and then you build it. I mean, you have scene shops, you have costume shops, and you have to build the show. And you need those designs about a year ahead of time so that you can build things without a rush, because when you do things in a rush, you pay more. And the singers, sort of around the same time, you hire the singers that you want for that performance, for that production. Mm-hmm. The singers, once they get hired, said, I'm going to hire David to sing Don Jose and Carmen. It's up to you to learn the role. That's not my problem. Your contract says at the first day of rehearsals, you show up with the role memorized, with text and music memorized, so that we can go and actually rehearse. I'm not there to teach you the role. That's the singer's responsibility. The chorus is different. We have a chorus master that works the music with the choristers, but that's slightly different also because the chorus is from the same city, but you hire singers to sing the solo roles, and that it's their job to know the role.
And how long in advance are there contracts between the time they sign the contract to sing Carmen and the time performing? And secondly, how many days are they in Seattle actually performing on stage before the first performance?
The contracts are being made anywhere between 1 to 4 years before they actually perform the production. It depends. I mean, right now everything is canceled anyway. So right now at this moment, things are, the times are shorter, but typically 1 to 4 years ahead of time. And then they usually are here 3 to 5 weeks. It depends on the complexity of the production, on the complexity, the length of the piece. But on average in the US, it's about 4 weeks before opening night. In Europe, you very often have 6 to 8 weeks because they typically rehearse more time. But also a lot of the houses don't just do one piece at a time. They do like 4, 5, 6, 7 operas per month. And so a lot of the singers rehearse, but then they're gone for one day, or they sing a performance. And then of course the day they sing a performance, they cannot rehearse. So it makes the principle of their seasons and their operation makes the rehearsal period longer. But here in the US, typically is one production at a time.
But as director, do you so there are sort of touring companies. Do you?
They're touring singers, not companies.
So it's not companies; it's just touring singers. So you actually have to put everything on. It's not a case of
Seattle Opera is Seattle-based.
Yeah.
Seattle Symphony is our orchestra that we use for the opera. The choristers are here in Seattle. The costumes, we have about 40, 50 productions in storage in our costume shop. And we have some productions also in storage. And we are based here. What we do is hire the singers, the conductor, and if we do a production when I say production, that's sets, costumes, props, and the actual stage direction. So you put a production on that, let's say you have never done before. And of course, I also have to hire the stage director and the designers in order to put the production on the way it's intended to be. But the basis, I mean, the columns of a company is chorus, orchestra, stage crew, costume shop, stage management. That personnel is yours. They know the house, they know the cast of characters, they know the facility. They know that over there is rehearsal room A and over there is rehearsal room B, and the props shop is back there. So if I need something from the props master, I know what, I mean, the basis is in one place. Of course, there are touring companies like a musical. You've seen, you know, the Hamilton went on tour, but that is typically a production that is designed to be mounted quickly. It's not like the original Broadway show that is a more complex set design. It's simpler, and the singers are hired for several months to tour around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how far out do you plan then? I mean, so you've got, I'm sure you've got a calendar in your office somewhere that says, right, we're doing Tosca, and then we're doing Carmen, and then we're going to do a new one, and then we're going to do,
right now we're not doing anything other than recording, but I'm really happy that we actually are recording on the stage of McCaw Hall. That is a huge step already. And the other operas this season will do it the same way. We'll do them on the stage, and the singers are coming here. I mean, the singers that came now were happy to get on a plane and come here. So that's not the problem. And then next season, the idea is to do in fall 21, do the Bohème that we had to cancel now in May because we had a great cast. So we're doing it the following season. Then we do a world premiere, which is a co-production with the Met. And then I need something not too taxing. Well, also for the audience, you don't want to do just bloody murder on stage. I think if we all come and get through this COVID period, we need also some things that are uplifting. And I think as much as Bohème is sad at the end, but it's a piece that everybody loves. The co-production with the Met is a world premiere that will actually premiere here in Seattle and then go to the Met. And then I'm thinking of either Nozze di Figaro or Magic Flute or something like this to have a variety in the season, but also have something that people can really enjoy. I think we need a period where the audience can really come and just,
crowd pleasers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the following year, I'm looking at 22, 23, I'm looking at Traviata. Another world premiere, and I hope I can galvanize a little bit the Seattle audience about world premieres, because that's something that we need. And we have great, wonderful operas or theatrical pieces, because at some point they were created. If you don't create anything new, then you're just gonna stall, and you just do same old. Mm-hmm. And then probably if I do Nozze in spring 22, then I would do fall 22 Traviata, world premiere, and probably then the Magic Flute in the spring 23. And meanwhile, also do chamber opera in Techni Jones Hall. And chamber opera is not just small, teeny operas. It's all the Baroque operas, the Handel, the Monteverdi. A lot of them were made for opera houses that had 300 seats. In the 17th century and in the 16th century, the theaters were teeny tiny, and the pieces were made for them. And we have Techni Jones Hall in the Opera Center, which is it's a great space, and also a space where you can do a lot of productions creatively, because the audience is so close. You can use the side corridors, you can use the upper level on the side, and there's a lot that you can do there. And aside from master classes and recitals, and that space is ours, so I can use it however I want. and then we'll see. I mean, right now I'm not thinking beyond 22, 23, although I've talked with colleagues about titles and co-productions beyond. Co-production means that you share the expenses for costume, scenery, and props. So you agree on, let's say I want to do, I don't know, Electra, and you agree that you both or 3 theaters like this designer and this director and say, okay, let's do it together. And you share the material expenses and construction expenses, but then every house has their own cast. It doesn't mean that you're just duplicating. It's no, everybody hires their singers, but the physical production is going to go from one place to the other, which of course also costs shipping and shipping insurance. That's, you know, so it's not that all of a sudden it doesn't cost anything, but scenery, costumes, and props typically you'll spend about 600,000 more or less. So if you can share those expenses or more, you can also spend more. I mean, the Turandot by Zeffirelli at the Met probably cost them 30 years ago about $1 million. You know, you can. The sky is the limit, and but on average 500,000-600,000. You know, especially if the stage is big, you can't just put a tent on there. I mean, there are material expenses just to fill the stage also. And today we also use projections a lot, but even projections, it's not that you save material expenses entirely. You still have to do the mapping of the projections. You need the projectors. The projection design is also part of the production. So it's not that all of a sudden it doesn't cost you anything, but you share these material expenses, but then you still have to ship the production around, which, you know, a container from Europe to across the Atlantic is about $3,000 one way. All the way to Seattle is about $4,500, $4,400. Depends also on the oil prices and a few other factors. But so round trip, that's, you know, $8,000 just for one container. The production usually has anywhere between 3 and 24 containers.
Wow. Do you put is that the chorus you've put in one of the containers then? Is it for 24
Sometimes
containers?
I wished, and I didn't say this. No, it's just the size of the scenery. The biggest production we had was in Barcelona, was a production of War and Peace. The Invisible City of Kitesh. And that was 24 containers.
Oh.
Wow.
And that production was a co-production with Covent Garden, La Scala, Barcelona, and the Met. Once it went to the Met, there it stayed. None of the other companies is going to do this production again because they're shipping it back. Might as well do a new production. And I mean, those are, I think, flaws of the creation of a production where you have to control a little bit and go, wait, no, that's not. I mean, I do look at the amount of containers and what it costs to set it up and to ship it. And I do think that has to be taken into consideration. But, you know, on average, it's between 3 and 8 containers is relatively normal.
Do you find that each city has its own taste for opera?
Yeah, definitely does. The audiences are from one city to the other differ a lot in their taste, in their trajectory. You know, every city has had an opera house for longer or for shorter period of time. Audiences have seen more or less, have seen more modern pieces, more traditional pieces, more variety of productions or not. It depends who's been running the company also. I mean, in Houston, David Gockley did, over the years he was there, 30 plus world premieres. And so the audience there has a relative curiosity for new pieces. Not every city is like that, but it took years to get the audience used to that. in many cities, I mean, my European colleagues often go, oh, the Americans such a conservative taste. And I kind of have to say, we didn't have opera for 450 years. It's younger. There are many people here who still see La Bohème for the first time, and there's nothing wrong with it. But even though I think one can do new pieces and challenge the audience once in a while, or maybe broaden the horizon, but you cannot do this with a sledgehammer and just, you know, say you will see the entire season, you will only see 21st century and really edgy productions. That, you know, it has to be, you have to complement each other. When you plan your seasons, and complement it with your audiences, and work with your audiences and talk with your audience. I mean, on the other hand, it doesn't mean that you only do Tosca, Bohème, and Carmen, because those who come all the time, you get bored too if that's all we do. So a little variety is good, or something new and unusual is good, but everything in moderation and in a certain balance.
Christina, I know it's early days, but do you think the opera is going to come through this cycle healthy, or are you worried about the future?
No, I think we will, because there's a lot of musical enthusiasm and opera audiences here. But I do think that we have to change. And I do think that for the next couple of years, we will have to have slightly smaller seasons and be very careful what we put on stage. I mean, Meistersinger is not really in the stars right now. It's just massively expensive. And we also have to see how our audiences react if they come back. When they come back, if the vaccine helps people to feel comfortable. But that goes with everything, goes for theater, goes for sports events. We have to see how people come back and re-stimulate the interest. It's going to take a little time, but I do think that if through millennia, I dare to say, people have been coming to theater again and again and again, through pandemics, through the bubonic plague, through the Spanish flu that they had in the early 20th century. I mean, there has been always events that decimated the population, and still they came back. The humanity is pretty resilient.
Do you think you will maybe adopt some new you know, we're all using Zoom now that I never even heard the word Zoom before this pandemic. You know, just even if things do return to normal, that you might go, hey, you know what, we could probably increase our audience by doing live streaming, or you know, other stuff like that. Do you think you'll look to maybe adopt that? If you're already filming, you're getting the experience of filming in an empty in a stadium. Maybe you could do it with a full one too.
No, you're right. I mean, it's we're learning a new skill since we're forced to, which is good for us. But I do think that the life experience.
Thank you so much. This has been fascinating to hear.
Sure. No, it was good to see you all, actually, Jason. Thanks for making me do this. Not that you had to twist my arm at all, but it's really nice to see you all. And
good to meet you, Christina.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot,
Christina. I